A lost wheel was found, but it wasn't from a toy. It started with a strange ripple in the shallow creek behind our house, one that shouldn't have moved upstream. I was out there with my younger brother, Eli, skimming stones and listening to the cicadas hum their usual evening dirge. That's when Eli bent down and pulled something from the water. It was a wheel, about the size of a tea saucer, metal, rusted at the edges, but not like anything I'd seen before. It wasn't from a toy car or a wagon. It looked mechanical, industrial, but old, like it belonged to something that should have stayed buried. Eli turned it in his hands. It was spinning under the water by itself. I took it from him, cold and heavier than it looked. The axle was twisted, almost clawed. I felt uneasy holding it, like I'd picked up a broken tooth that still remembered pain. That night, things in the house began to tick. Not clocks, not our wall timers, but things that shouldn't tick, like the kitchen faucet, my bedroom fan. Even Eli's stuffed bear made a soft clicking sound, as if counting. We thought it was our imagination, until Eli started sleepwalking. The first time, he walked into the hallway and just stood there, facing the front door. His lips moved as though whispering to someone. When I touched his shoulder, his eyes snapped open. He screamed so loud the neighbors came running. He didn't remember it the next morning, but I did. I remembered the faint sound of wheels spinning in the dark. We never brought the wheel into the house. That much I was sure of. I'd left it outside on the fence post, watched it drip creek water into the grass. But by morning it was gone, and in its place, on the kitchen table, was a wet imprint. A ring of rust, a faint smear, as if something had rolled across the wood, and stopped exactly where Eli sat for breakfast. He didn't notice, or pretended not to. But later that afternoon, I found him in the garage, hunched over Dad's old workbench with a stack of printer paper and a red crayon, furiously sketching. I watched in silence as he filled page after page. Lines became loops. Loops became spirals. Then wheels. Then limbs. Metal arms, jointed and unnatural, reaching through doors that didn't have hinges. Wheels with no axles. Faces with no mouths. He didn't blink once. "Eli," I called. "What are you drawing?" He looked up slowly, eyes glassy. "I don't know," he said. "But they're almost here." I felt the air go still. When he left the garage, I went through the drawings, each one more disturbing than the last. Some looked like blueprints, but for machines no child should dream up. Others looked like memories, or warnings. One page showed our house from above, surrounded by circles of wheels, closing in. That night, the ticking returned. But this time, it was rhythmic, mechanical, as if something enormous were shifting its weight under the floorboards. I tried to sleep, but my ceiling fan was spinning on its own, even though the switch was off. Then I heard it, from Eli's room. Not footsteps. Wheels. They rolled slowly, then stopped. Something metal scraped against wood. Then silence. I bolted from my bed. When I opened his door, Eli was gone. Only his sheets remained, tangled like a chrysalis. And on the floor, beside the bed, glistening in the moonlight, was the wheel. It had come back. And this time, it brought something with it. The morning after Eli vanished, the air outside was thick and wrong. It wasn't just quiet, it was waiting. I found the trail by accident. A black smear across the grass, glistening like oil, led from the back steps toward the woods. I followed it, heart pounding, calling his name with a voice that sounded smaller each time I said it. The trail twisted unnaturally, like it was avoiding the sun. Wherever the mark touched, the grass had wilted, flattened into strange patterns that looked like interlocking gears. And then, just beyond the trellis, I saw them. The drawings. Pages from Eli's sketchbook were strung between the branches, fluttering like prayer flags, each one soaked from dew, edges curling in on themselves. But the ink hadn't run. The crayon marks were deeper now, thicker, almost carved into the paper. And all of them pointed in the same direction, toward the old creek. By the time I reached it, the oily trail vanished, melted into the mud near a set of crooked stones. I knelt beside the water. It was still flowing, but something shimmered beneath the surface. Not fish, not rocks, Teeth. I plunged my hand into the water before I could think twice, and touched metal. A smooth, circular plate, warm, even underwater. As I pulled it free, it brought mud and roots clinging to it, but beneath that mess was another wheel, smaller than the first. But this one had grooves cut into it like a gear. And in the center, something pulsed, faintly glowing red, like a mechanical heartbeat. And then a voice, not spoken, but pressed into my head. He saw too much. You opened the gate. I stumbled back, throwing the wheel into the dirt. The creek began to boil, not with heat, but with movement. Dozens of wheels, rusted, broken, slick with moss, rose from beneath the water. Some had spokes. Others had jagged arms like claws, all spinning slowly, rising from the mud like forgotten limbs of a long-dead machine. And at the center of it all a shape was forming, tall, narrow, standing upright on wheels. Watching me, I ran. Branches sliced at my arms. My breath was ragged. But behind me, the sound was unmistakable. Wheels turning, grinding, following. Eli hadn't been taken by force. He had been invited. And now, the door he'd opened was wide. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw gears turning behind my lids, clicking, shifting, grinding. I heard the soft whir of something mechanical breathing. And underneath it all, Eli's voice whispering, I figured it out. It's not just a toy, it's a piece. The next morning, I returned to the woods. I followed the dead trail of twisted grass and blackened moss deeper than I ever had, past the hollow tree, past the bent fence, until I reached the place no animal went. The soil there wasn't dirt anymore, it was metallic dust. Gray, fine, humming if you pressed your ear to the ground. That's where I found the opening. It looked like a drain, round and slick, perfectly cut into the earth, surrounded by patterns like ancient circuitry. I don't know why I went down. Maybe part of me already knew Eli was waiting. Or maybe whatever lived below wanted me to come. The ladder was made of iron, cold and damp. My hands burned from the rust as I climbed down, rung by rung, deeper than the earth should have gone. And then I dropped into it. The assembly room, massive, cavernous, alive. The walls were layered with wheels, some tiny, some the size of car tires, spinning in perfect synchronization. Tubes snaked through the air like veins, and from the ceiling hung wire limbs that twitched like spiders in sleep. And in the center was Eli, standing on a platform made of black metal, surrounded by tall, rusted figures. His eyes were blank, gray, like dried-out paint. His mouth moved soundlessly as one of the machines turned toward him, its face just a panel of shifting dials. They were building him. Straps were coiled around his arms, tiny gear pins pressed into his skin. One of his legs was already wrapped in a shell of bronze and steel, wheels where bones used to be. I stepped forward. My foot hit a loose piece of scrap. Every head in that room turned. The whisper came again. You saw the piece. You heard the hum. Now you belong. From the shadows, arms unfolded, made of spokes and twisted nails. A figure rolled toward me, half human, half machine. Its voice like a warbled recording. Do not fear. The machine does not erase. It upgrades. I grabbed Eli's hand. It was cold. Too cold. But he looked at me, really looked. And for a moment, something flickered behind those dead eyes. Run, he mouthed. The walls closed. The gears shrieked. And above, the drain hole began to seal. I dragged Eli, limping, half human, half machine, across the cold metal floor as the grinding above grew louder. The ceiling was closing, teeth of steel turning slowly inward like a massive gear swallowing the only exit. Behind us, the constructs followed. Not running, rolling, smooth, precise, like they'd already calculated every possible path we could take and were simply waiting for us to fail. Eli stumbled beside me. Sparks fell from where his leg met flesh. I can't, it's already inside me, he breathed. I feel it thinking. I didn't stop. I couldn't. We reached a narrow tunnel to the right, one not shaped like a perfect corridor, rougher, older. It pulsed with a faint blue light, and through it I could feel air, real air. We crawled. Eli shook. Something in his chest clicked with every movement. But he kept whispering, "They're building more. They don't just want me." I looked back once. I shouldn't have. The largest one had entered the tunnel. It didn't walk, it unfolded. Arms turned into wheels, a mouth split into rows of blades. And its voice. "You carried the wheel. You became the key. You fed the machine." I realized then. The little wheel I'd found in the dirt, it was never lost. It had been planted. A seed. Something to infect my mind, to lure me in. It had scanned me the moment I touched it, tasted my thoughts, read my memories. Every time I tried to throw it away, it came back. It wasn't broken, it was patient. We burst out into a different chamber, smaller, round, and high-walled. In the center stood a great mechanical pillar of cogs and pistons, spinning furiously around a glowing blue core. "The brain," Eli whispered. And then he said something I'll never forget. "If I stop it, they stop building. But I can't go back after." I didn't have time to argue. He was already stepping forward, dragging his metal leg toward the pillar, even as alarms rang and the machines shrieked behind us. He turned to me, eyes soft again, human again. "Tell Mom I wasn't broken," he said. "I just saw something bigger." And he pulled the gear from his chest and jammed it into the brain. The sound was deafening. A final grinding scream. The walls shook. Sparks rained down. The machines froze mid-motion, heads turning as if confused. Then they collapsed, one by one, like puppets with their strings cut. I don't remember how I got out. Just the feeling of dirt under my fingers as I crawled up from the earth and into the morning light. The wheel was gone. Eli was gone. But sometimes at night, when the world is quiet, I hear a hum beneath the ground. And I remember what the voice said. The machine does not erase. It upgrades. And maybe it's still building, somewhere deeper, waiting for the next lost child to find the next piece.